Should I tell them now, or do you want to? The room went silent so fast, I could hear the grandfather clock in the hallway ticking between breaths. A moment earlier, everyone had been applauding my brother. Thanksgiving dinner was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it had turned into a coronation. My brother had pushed back his chair, lifted his glass, and announced that our parents were officially giving him ownership of the family business after New Year's. No warning, no discussion, just a public declaration. Then he smiled across the table at me. And before anyone asks, he said, "Claire understands this is the best decision for everyone." Every face turned toward me. Aunts, uncles, cousins, people who had watched me spend 15 years helping build that company. I felt my mother's eyes avoiding mine. My father focused on his plate. Neither of them said a word. That silence hurt more than the announcement, because I knew exactly what it meant. The decision had already been made. My brother leaned back comfortably. "You've always been more emotional than business-minded anyway," he added with a laugh. A few uncomfortable chuckles floated around the table. I picked up my wineglass. My hand was perfectly steady. That seemed to disappoint him. He wanted tears, shock, maybe even a scene. Instead, I took a slow sip and looked directly at my father. His face lost color before I spoke. He knew. The instant our eyes met, he knew exactly what I was thinking. "Should I tell them now?" I asked quietly. "Or do you want to?" The fork slipped from my mother's hand and clattered onto her plate. And for the first time that night, my brother stopped smiling. My brother looked around the table, confused by the sudden tension. What exactly is that supposed to mean? Nobody answered him. My father's jaw tightened so hard I thought he might crack a tooth. My mother stared at her napkin. That was all the confirmation I needed. For years, they had convinced themselves the truth would never come out. They thought I would keep protecting them, keep carrying their secret, keep sacrificing my own future to preserve the image of a perfect family. I set my glass down. "You should probably explain why you're giving him a company that legally shouldn't belong to either of you anymore." Several relatives exchanged puzzled looks. My brother laughed. "Okay, now you're just being dramatic." I ignored him. My attention stayed on my father. "Tell them." His face turned pale. "Claire, this isn't the time." The words nearly made me smile. Not the time. After 15 years of broken promises, it was finally the perfect time. My uncle leaned forward. "What is she talking about?" The room felt smaller, hotter. Every eye moved between my father and me. My mother finally spoke. "Please don't do this." The fear in her voice changed everything. People noticed. Questions began appearing on faces. My brother's confidence started cracking. "Mom." She didn't answer him. Instead, she looked at me with the same expression she'd worn years earlier in a lawyer's office. The day she begged me to sign papers. The day she promised the arrangement was temporary. The day she swore our family would make everything right. I reached into my purse. My father's eyes widened immediately. "Claire." A warning. A plea. A threat. Maybe all three. Slowly, I pulled out a folded document. The original document. The one nobody outside our immediate family had ever seen. And when my uncle recognized the signature at the bottom, he stood up so quickly his chair slammed into the wall. "That's impossible." My uncle's voice came out as a whisper. The entire table stared at the document in my hands. I unfolded it carefully, smoothing the creases that had formed over years of being hidden away. My brother looked irritated more than concerned. He still believed this was some emotional protest. Some desperate attempt to steal attention from his big moment. "You're seriously bringing paperwork to Thanksgiving?" he asked. Nobody laughed. Not anymore. My uncle stepped closer. "Claire, where did you get that?" "You know where," I said. His expression answered the question for everyone else. He recognized it. My father buried his face in his hands. The room became painfully quiet. I glanced at the signatures. My grandfather's signature sat at the bottom. Strong. Certain. Written 3 months before he died. The sight of it still hurt. Because unlike most people in that room, he had always been honest with me. Always. "Dad." my brother asked nervously. My father didn't respond. That frightened him more than anything I could have said. I looked around the table. These aren't company records, I explained. This is my grandfather's ownership transfer agreement. My cousin frowned. Ownership transfer to who? Nobody answered. Not immediately. My mother began crying. Small tears at first, then bigger ones. The kind that come when someone realizes a lie has finally reached its expiration date. My brother stood. Somebody tell me what's happening. I met his eyes. For the first time all evening, I saw uncertainty there. Real uncertainty. Not arrogance. Not superiority. Fear. The business wasn't left to Dad, I said. It wasn't left to Mom. My brother stared at me. Every relative leaned forward. Every breath seemed suspended. The company was transferred directly to me. The silence that followed felt endless. Then my brother laughed. A short, disbelieving laugh. No. I slid the document across the table. Read the last page. He looked down, and as his eyes reached my grandfather's signature, every bit of color drained from his face. My brother read the page once, then again, then a third time. Each pass seemed to make the words less believable to him. His hands started shaking. No, he said quietly. This has to be fake. Nobody rushed to agree. Nobody defended him, because the signatures were real. The notarization was real. The witnesses were real. And several of those witnesses were sitting at the table. My uncle slowly lowered himself back into his chair. I remember this, he said. The room turned toward him. My father closed his eyes. He knew what was coming. Your grandfather called me to his office that afternoon, my uncle continued. He said he was restructuring everything before his surgery. My brother looked desperate. You knew? I knew he was changing ownership. My uncle swallowed. I didn't know the new owner was Claire. A stunned silence settled over the room. My mother sobbed openly now. The sound filled every empty space between us. My brother looked at her, then at Dad, then back at the document. You let me believe this company was mine. No one answered. That silence said enough. For years, they had let him sit in executive meetings. They had introduced him to clients as the future owner. They had built his entire identity around an inheritance that wasn't his. Then he turned toward me. The anger arrived all at once. You waited until now? I almost laughed. Waited? For 15 years, I had done the accounting, negotiated contracts, solved crises, and protected the company while my family treated me like temporary help. I hadn't waited. I'd endured. Grandpa asked me to keep the family together, I said. My voice remained calm. He believed eventually the truth would come out the right way. And this is the right way? His words were sharp enough to cut. I looked around the table. At the public announcement. At the celebration planned without me. At the inheritance they had just stolen in front of our entire family. Then I looked back at him. No, I said softly. The right way ended when Dad stood up and lied to everyone tonight. My father's chair scraped against the floor as he finally stood. And the first words out of his mouth changed everything. She's telling the truth. My father's voice sounded older than I had ever heard it. Not tired. Defeated. The room froze. Even my brothers stopped arguing. My father looked around the table as though seeing everyone for the first time. Friends. Relatives. People who had respected him for decades. People who believed he had built the family business into what it was. He took a long breath. Then another. I never owned the company. The confession landed harder than any accusation could have. My aunt covered her mouth. One cousin actually whispered, "Oh my God." My father nodded toward me. Claire inherited it from her grandfather. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The truth was finally standing in the middle of the room where everyone could see it. My brother stared at Dad. You knew this the whole time. Yes. You let me believe I was next. Yes. Each answer seemed to hit him like a punch. My mother began crying harder. Please stop, she whispered. But there was no stopping now. 15 years of deception had finally cracked open. My father sat back down heavily. We thought we had time. The statement almost made me angry. Time. That had always been their excuse. More time. One more year. One more conversation. One more opportunity to make things right. Meanwhile, I kept carrying responsibilities that officially weren't mine while they kept promising ownership discussions that never happened. My brother turned toward me. His face was pale. You could have taken everything years ago. Yes.
Why didn't you?
For a moment, the answer caught in my throat. Because I loved them. Because I trusted them. Because every holiday, every birthday, every family gathering came with another promise that things would be fixed soon. I finally looked him in the eye. Because I believed our family mattered more than a title. His expression shifted. Not softer. Worse. Because he had realized something. The company wasn't the biggest secret sitting at that table. And when he asked his next question, my mother's face completely fell apart. What else aren't they telling me? The question hung in the air. Nobody wanted to answer it. Not my father. Not my mother.
Certainly not me.
Yet the silence itself became an answer. My brother slowly stepped away from the table. The confidence that had carried him through the evening was gone. What else? He repeated.
His voice sounded smaller now.
More vulnerable. For the first time, I wasn't looking at the brother who had spent years assuming the business was his. I was looking at a man realizing his entire life might have been built on half-truths. My mother covered her face. Please, she whispered. My father stared at the floor. My brother looked between them. Then his eyes settled on me. The same eyes that had mocked me an hour earlier. Now they were searching for honesty. Claire. I hated what came next. Not because it would hurt him. Because it would confirm something I had spent years trying not to believe myself. I swallowed. Grandpa didn't choose me because he thought you were incapable. My brother frowned. Then why? I looked at our parents. Neither one could meet my gaze. That told me everything. Again. Because he didn't trust them. The words landed like broken glass. My father flinched. My mother started crying harder. My brother stared. What does that mean? I reached into my purse again. A second document rested beside the first. One my grandfather had written by hand. Not legal paperwork. A letter. His final explanation. The letter I had read dozens of times over the years. The letter that had kept me awake more nights than I could count. My brother watched me place it on the table. Read it, I said. His hands trembled as he unfolded the pages. The room remained completely silent. His eyes moved across the first paragraph. Then the second. Then halfway down the first page. And that was when his expression changed. Shock. Confusion. Heartbreak. He looked up at our parents. Not at me. At them. Because whatever he had just read wasn't about business. It was about him. And judging by the terror on my parents' faces, they knew exactly which paragraph he had reached. My brother lowered the letter slowly. His hands were trembling so badly the pages rattled against each other. No, he whispered. My mother broke first. A strangled sob escaped her throat. My father remained frozen in his chair. The silence felt unbearable. My brother looked back down and reread the paragraph. Then he looked at our parents again. You lied to me my entire life. Nobody denied it. That was the worst part. Not one denial. Not one correction. Only guilt. Raw and unmistakable. My grandfather's handwriting filled the page. Years earlier, he had written that he loved both of us equally. That neither grandchild deserved to be punished for the mistakes of adults. And then he explained why he had chosen me. Because when my brother was 16, my parents had secretly taken money from company accounts to cover personal debts. A lot of money. Enough to put the business at risk. Grandpa discovered it. Instead of reporting them, he saved the company himself. Then he made a decision. Ownership would pass to the one person he believed would protect it from family pressure. Me. The letter made one thing painfully clear. My brother had never known. He had never participated. He had never benefited. He had simply been raised inside a carefully constructed story. The anger drained from his face. What remained was devastation. He turned toward me. All these years you knew? I nodded. His eyes filled with tears. Not because he lost the company. Because he had lost trust. Trust in the people who raised him. Trust in the future they promised him. Trust in the version of his life he thought was real. Then he faced our parents. The room waited. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. My mother reached for him. He stepped back. And when he finally spoke, his voice was calm enough to terrify everyone. "There's one more thing I need to know." My father slowly lifted his head. My brother's eyes locked onto his. "After everything Grandpa wrote," he said quietly, "tell me why you were planning to steal it from her tonight." Nobody answered immediately. My brother's question sat in the center of the room, like a verdict waiting to be read. My father looked exhausted. Not caught. Not misunderstood. Exhausted. The kind of exhaustion that comes from carrying a lie for too many years. Finally, he spoke. "Because I thought I could fix everything before anyone found out." My brother laughed bitterly. "By giving away something that wasn't yours?" My father had no response. My mother's tears continued falling. For the first time in my life, I felt no satisfaction watching them unravel. Only clarity. The truth had done what years of arguments never could. It had exposed reality. My brother looked at me. "I owe you an apology." The word surprised everyone, especially me. "For what?" "For believing the story they told me," he said. "For assuming you were standing in my way when you were carrying all of us." The room grew quiet again. Then he did something nobody expected. He slid the ownership document back across the table toward me. Not reluctantly, respectfully. "It was always yours." Those 4 words broke something loose inside me. Not anger. Not grief. Freedom. The weight I had carried for 15 years finally disappeared. A month later, I formally took control of the company. Not one employee left. Most had known who was truly running things anyway. My brother started a business of his own. We weren't as close as before, but for the first time, our relationship was built on truth. As for my parents, they lost something money couldn't buy.
Credibility. Trust.
The authority they had spent decades assuming would never be questioned. That Thanksgiving, they tried to write me out of my own future. Instead, they revealed themselves to everyone who mattered. And I walked away with exactly what my grandfather intended me to have.